Another day is here, and you're ready for it. What to wear? Check. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Check. Planning for what's next and how to save for it? That's where Bank of America can help. For your financial to-dos, Bank of America has experts ready to help get you closer to your goals. Get started at one of our local financial centers or 24/7 in our mobile banking app. Find a location near you at bankofamerica.com/talktous. What would you like the power to do? Mobile banking requires downloading the app and is only available for select devices. Message and data rates may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
In solid and spectacular form. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm not bad. I would be better for having not watched those games yesterday. They were not entertaining. They were predictably dull, to be fair. Let's start with France versus Belgium. Now, as you pointed out before the mics went live, France did have a lot of shots in this game, 19 of them, but only managed to get 2 on target. They win the game 1-0, a Jan Vertonghen own goal on 85 minutes, and France go through, Belgium go out, and still, Karl, after 4 matches, no French player has scored from open play.
Yes, it's not difficult to know what to make of France because we know exactly what France are, but it is difficult to see them as champions, just because of the way that they have gone about it. They're very, very solid, and they certainly know how to put performances together, and they play the way they need to dominate matches in large stretches. But they're not like individually massively impressive. They're not, as a collective, super eye-catching. Deschamps isn't like, taking them off a tactical leash at any point to make use of the magic talents that he does have there. And yet, despite not really being impressive, yesterday was a stroll for them. Like, Belgium did nothing. They were absolutely useless. And I do think, as I've said before, this Belgium squad is largely useless anyway. But there are enough players there to have moments. And they just didn't. They just had nothing.
No, they didn't. They offered so little in the game. And what I was stunned by, Karl, was how attacking the Belgians went with their lineup. So we predicted that the back four would remain the same. So Castagna stayed right back. Your friend Wout Faes next to Jan Vertonghen at centre back. Yet they had left back. But the midfield, I mean, it's just Onana and a bunch of attack-minded players after that. You've got Yannick Carrasco, who I'm not sure why he was back in the team because he was crap in the first game. Jeremy Doku, Kevin De Bruyne, Luis Openda comes into the team, and Romelu Lukaku. Were you surprised by how many attacking players they started? Like, how many outright attacking players? Because other than Onana, like outside the back four, it's all purely attack-minded players. And other than Carrasco, not one of them has ever had a defensive thought in their life.
So, I mean, yes, I was a little bit surprised. When I saw the 11, I thought it actually might be a back three with Thiago and third centre-back and Carrasco as a wing-back and Castagna. So that could have been a 3-4-3 then with Doku, Openda, and Lukaku. So I thought that was like Tedesco sort of hedging his bets that it could be a really attack-minded 4-2-3-1, or he could start with 3-5-2, or shapeshift on and off the ball, that kind of thing. I thought that might be a reasonable approach because he spoke before the game and said they need to do something different because what they're doing so far is not working. And so I don't mind the fact that he went different, like whether they had a particular game plan or how they wanted to do it, but actually the execution of it was, if anything, even worse, because what you ended up with was Onana and De Bruyne about 5-10 yards in front of the defence, and then nobody for about 30 yards around them. And then just a line of either 3 or at times even 4 further forward. Like Carrasco, I know he's nominally a winger, but he is a bit of a hedge, isn't he? He's like playing James Milner on the wing a few years ago. He's someone is going to do the sort of defensive work as well as being an attacking outlet. Whether that's good or bad, doing it, that's what he is tactically speaking. So I didn't mind it as an idea, but by God, it was horrifically implemented. Like De Bruyne, he's the best player in your team, and he's an attacker. Yeah. He's a creative player. And I think the only thing of note that he did in that first half was he won a tackle on the halfway line against Thuram, where it could have been a bit of a dangerous counter for France. Like no through passes, no attempted dribbles, no shots, no chances set up, no touches in the final third, certainly no balls through to like Lukaku and the like. Like he was so marginalised, and like he worked hard and everything. I'm not saying he had a shit half. I'm saying they did not use any of his talents as such, and as a result, obviously, Lukaku was nowhere because nobody else is going to give him that ball.
No, they weren't. Like you, when I saw the team, my immediate thought was, oh, interesting, he's gone with a back 3. Because, there's no way you'd look at that and think, well, Yannick Carrasco, who began the tournament as the starting left back, is now the starting right winger. See, I just assumed it was a back 3. And then to my horror, as I turned the game on and the game kicked off, discovered, oh no, Carrasco's playing right wing, where he hasn't played in years. Like, if you're going to play the 4-4-2 and you want to go that attacking, I don't know why you wouldn't try Bakayoko. If you're going to throw caution to the wind, throw it all the way out there and play Bakayoko. Maybe his thought was, if this doesn't work, I'll switch it up at some point in the first half and we can go to the back 3, and that might give us a little bit of a bump because France might not expect us to make that change in game without making a substitution. But then he didn't, and it hadn't worked. And like you said, I mean, he just sat Kevin De Bruyne in front of the centre-backs. It's the most pointless use of him I've ever seen. He could have played him right wing and just played Tielemans in the middle if you just wanted someone that could sit in the middle of the park and knock the ball around. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. Now, on the French side, that centre-back partnership still looks wobbly to me, Karl. Upamecano and Saliba. Upamecano does odd things from time to time. And Saliba isn't nearly as good on the ball as he thinks he is. And he got robbed yesterday. And Carrasco got sent through. And if he had a bit more pace, if it was Yannick Carrasco from 3-4 years ago, he probably gets a clean shot away. But Theo Hernandez did brilliantly to get back and help him out. I thought it was another sort of nothing performance from Rabiot. I don't understand why Camavinga's not in the team over him. Like, what does Rabiot offer you that Camavinga doesn't? And then in attack, I feel like Marcus Thuram has just been very, very ineffective in this tournament. I thought they looked a bit more lively when Kolo Muani came on. I think him and Mbappe have a little bit more cohesion together than Thuram and Mbappe do, because, like, Kolo Muani is an actual number 9. Marcus Thuram is a 9/left winger, similar enough to Mbappe, And it felt like at times they were almost taking up the same positions, which was forcing Mbappe as the wide player to go that bit wider again. I didn't like the lineup. I think you bring back in Konate, or you bring in Konate because he hasn't played yet, for Upamecano, you bring in Camavinga for Rabiot, and you start Kolo Muani. I know he's not in great form, especially at club level, but I just think he makes more sense with Mbappe. And I think that French team improves enormously with those three changes. I'd also like to see them change the shape a little bit, because I don't think they're getting anything out of Griezmann using him the way they are.
No, Griezmann's been nothing, to be perfectly honest. I don't think there's been a whole lot of difference between him and Thuram at the tournament. But I don't think that's necessarily Griezmann not performing well. There's just not really anywhere for him to go or anything for him to do with the ball when he gets it in decent areas, because it's all a bit passive and slow, apart from Mbappe, really. I get what you're saying about Konate coming in and that, but obviously we don't know how he's been training or anything, but Konate didn't finish the season well, and France only conceded one goal. I think that's probably a bigger factor for Deschamps at the moment. Like, he's not going to change that back line unless he has to. That's a very, very settled manager who has very, very settled ways, and right now he's got a defence which is functioning, let's not say well, but is functioning, because France are not conceding any goals, and they're doing enough with the rest of the team, which is also functioning. It's not good, it's not great, it's not the best it could be, but it's functioning, and they're winning games, and they're going through the tournament. I don't see any changes.
No, I don't either, because Didier Deschamps is the French translation of Gareth Southgate. So while his ideas are crap and his tactical game plan is crap, he will believe that once he gets the correct results, he has been justified in being crap. So France are through, and they will take on Portugal. Portugal defeated Slovenia 3-0 on penalties last night. Overall, I think the game played out exactly like Slovenia wanted it to play out. Obviously, they wouldn't have wanted to give away the penalty when they did. Cristiano steps up. Cristiano misses. Cristiano has himself a big old cry. Game goes to penalties, and Slovenia miss all three penalties. And I have to say, Ilicic missing was a tough one, because we spoke about him on the last show. Really wanted to see him do well, have his moment, and unfortunately he wasn't to be. But Balkovic and Verbic also missed. What did you make of the game, and how funny was it when Cristiano cried?
So, I watched up until...
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
I think it was about this. I can't remember exactly. Let's say somewhere around an hour, right, in the media zone at the. I was at France Belgium yesterday, so I watched the first hour or so of Slovenia Portugal there afterwards, and then we left and we got sort of started going on the tram home, and we're following on our phones, obviously. And news comes through, there's a penalty, and so what we managed to do is basically one of the German volunteers had also seen it, quickly got up an app and streamed it on his phone. We got there just in time for the penalty. Everyone turns off the notifications and all the rest of it quickly. So we're watching the penalty, and nobody knows where everyone's from at this point. Bearing in mind, the volunteers, some of them are local, some of them have come in from further afield. Journalists are there from all over the place, obviously. And everyone's watching Ronaldo take this penalty. And I'm not joking with you. The entire tram cheered when it was saved. I don't know if some of them didn't like Portugal, or some of them were Slovenian, or maybe were French and wanted to play Slovenia in the next round or whatever it was, but everybody cheered that penalty save. It was quite something, quite a funny moment, to be fair, just given the setting and the scenario of it. Anyway, at the end of that, we managed to get quickly to a local place to watch the rest of the match. It was about the last 5 minutes of extra time and then the penalty shootout. So I don't have like a totally clear-cut view of the last half hour of the game, let's say, but I saw the Sesko chance, obviously, goodness me. It just, I assume because it's so late in the game and he's obviously got to run at pace to get away from Pepe, he's just too tired to properly get it in mind, to get it on his left foot, and that he's got an extra bit of time. If he puts that on his left foot, I have no doubt he scores. Or at the very least, he makes it a lot harder to save. Yeah, we had a bit of a discussion about this last night, and it was a good save. No denying that. Like, he positioned himself well, he stayed up, he reacted well, he's made the save as well. So it is a really good stop. I just think Sesko on his left foot makes that a lot harder to save, and Sesko on his left foot probably buries it or has more control or maybe goes around him or whatever it is. I just think he does something different other than just shoot goalwards, you know?
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. I think, look, he's a young player, and I think he saw everything light up in front of him. And he probably heard Pepe thundering along behind him. But, yeah, a little bit more composure, and he puts it on his left foot. And even just from the purpose of, like, he struck it well enough, but, like, that left foot, he can create immense power. And maybe it just flies past the goalkeeper off that left foot. But, look, it is what it is. He missed. The game went to penalties. And credit to Diogo Costa, who I'm not a big fan of. I do think he's improved significantly over the last couple of years, but when I hear his name been mentioned with 60 million transfer fees, I have to wonder, are we living in some sort of alternative universe? But he saves all 3 penalties. Now, they weren't the best penalties in the world, but they weren't bad penalties. And his teammates step up and score. Cristiano scores, Bruno scores, and Bernardo Silva scores. In what might be the most unlikable trio of penalty kick takers that the world has ever seen. It was funny watching the kind of following the game, watching the game and following on Twitter as well, and just watching the reaction as the game was going on. And just seeing people point out just how unlikable so many of this Portuguese team are. I mean, João Cancelo was a very unlikable chap, as is Diaz, as is Pepe. Vitinha has quite an unlikable face. Paulinho can be a little bit unlikable when he's booting players up in the air. And then all 4 of the attackers, Bernardo and Bruno, because they're whinging little pricks, and Leao, because there's just something about him that rubs people up wrong. And then obviously Cristiano's
probably the fact that he was suspended for diving.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of it. And the fact that, like, when the ball goes behind him, he just kind of looks at it and thinks, well, that's not my responsibility. That's back there now. I do the things from here and up, and someone else can take care of that shit back there. Yeah, they're a very unlikable group, and it doesn't need to be that way. It really doesn't. They are being held back by Cristiano. Like, I mean, that's, to me, I don't even think it can be debated that if he was coming off the bench, I genuinely think he could actually be an impact player. Yeah. If you could just get him on for 15 to 20 minutes where he can just go absolutely balls out, I think he could have an impact. And like, you look at the bench and you've got Diogo Jota there, you've got Gonçalo Ramos, so I know it's a rough season, but he is a very good player. I think if either of them are starting over him and he's coming off the bench, I think this team is an awful lot better off.
Yeah, I agree. I think from a squad use perspective, even eventually they will have to obviously play without him completely. So even from a succession perspective, it's not the worst idea in the world to get someone used to being a starter now, you know? I mean, I think Ronaldo... No, I don't. I definitely think Ronaldo plays up to the cameras and all the rest of it. Like, that's I don't think has been up for debate for years. But, like, yesterday, I just think it was so harmful. Like, he's obviously irritated or whatever by the fact he hasn't scored yet in the tournament. And even, like, well before the penalty, first half, he was taking free kicks. He was launching them 50 miles over the bar, except for that one, which went fairly close. But, like, he misses a header at the far post, and he's, like, roaring and throwing his arms up, and he's, like, pounding the floor in frustration. I'm like, fuck's sake, mate, you're, like, 15 minutes into a game here. It's not...
And you're near 40.
Yeah, and it's not like...
Like, you're near 40 years of age. Cop yourself on.
It's honestly pathetic. It really is just babyish at this point. Like, it's very, very annoying to have to watch all the time. And because cameras just pan to him all the time, obviously, and like, I just can't be dealing with all that crap. And then, like, I'm not going to judge too much, perfectly honest, for crying when he missed it, because I don't know what's going through his head or whatever at that point. It could have been something particularly personal if we obviously think about what he's been through in the last couple of years or whatever. But what I will say is that there's not really any surprise, and he cannot be surprised himself if he finds out that a lot of people took joy in him missing that penalty because of the type of player that he is and the type of player that he has been. That's just part of it, I'm afraid. That's same as Fernandes, same as Silva. When things don't go their way in a footballing sense, people do revel in that because of the personalities they have cultivated and because of the types of player they are. And so if Ronaldo ends up crying 2 games in a row at the Euros, there will be people who enjoy that.
I genuinely think if they lose 3-2 to France and he scores both goals, he'll be happy. He won't care if they've been knocked out. Because it's all about him.
I don't know that he would be outright happy, but I do absolutely believe he would say that he has done everything possible and other parts of the team have basically let things down.
Yeah, well, that would be it. It would be somebody else's fault. Even if he was to miss a couple of other sitters and waste a load more free kicks.
And got them to this particular point, this particular route of the tournament, if you like, due to obviously group stage and how that panned out. So it's not necessarily a good thing for Portugal at all, I don't think.
No, that's the thing. I mean, they could be playing. I mean, they could be playing Turkey today.
I just want to make one final point, right, before we move on to today's games, because we've spoken about them a lot, and I detest this squad, and I want to make one final point before we boot them out completely. Belgium yesterday, I know they were playing France, but Slovenia were playing Portugal. Both of those are supposed to be very, very good sides. Arguably both great squads, but neither playing to their full extent, right? So I don't think that one's necessarily a harder opponent than the other. Slovenia had more chances, more shots, and a far bigger XG than Belgium did yesterday. They also created a big chance, which Belgium did not. They are a disgrace, and I am glad they are out again.
I would say the gulf between Belgium and France on paper is smaller than the gulf between Slovenia and Portugal by quite a wide margin.
Yeah, by a magnitude.
I mean, realistically, if you're picking a combined 11, just based on how they perform at club level, you'd put Oblak in, obviously. I think you'd take Jakobijol and Sesko, and that's probably it. Like, if you were asking just Joe Soap to pick a team, combining the two, it's probably 8 Belgians. And they were an absolute shambles. They were a disgrace. As I said about France, I mean, they had loads of shots, but Belgium had 5, 2 on target. And they had plenty of the ball. Like, they had loads of the ball. Not like France dominated possession. Portugal dominated possession. But Belgium had absolutely no cohesive game plan at all.
That said, can we also point out when Slovenia maybe went to penalties, we cannot have Slovenia in the quarterfinals. We cannot have Slovenia getting to the quarterfinals of Euro 2024 after precisely 0 wins and 2 goals in 4 games. That's not allowed.
But that's why it would have been brilliant. I was hoping that they'd win it on penalties, get themselves through, take on the French, drag them to penalties, maybe beat them on penalties, and get to the semi-final having not won a game. It just would have been hilarious if they could have done that. Right, we have two games today. Romania, who had a brilliant first game, a not-so-great second game, and a boring third game.
A handshake third game.
A handshake third, yeah. I mean, a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, let's just be safe here and not do anything silly kind of game. Against the Netherlands, who have... I mean, I don't know what they've been like. They haven't been good. I mean, they were okay in the first game. They drew with France in a very dull encounter, and then they lost to Austria. And they're going to need to up their performance levels if they want to stay in this tournament for long. Romania is a team they should beat, Karl. But, I mean, I don't necessarily trust them.
Excuse me. I think Netherlands are almost decent. There's a couple of bits they still need to put together. They're obviously like a team who are like, probably 2 tournaments away from being like the best part that they can be with this current group of players. And obviously a couple will change along the way. But generally speaking, I think they're 1 or 2 tournaments away from being at like the peak of the arc kind of thing. But they haven't yet figured out a really, really important thing. I've written on this today, so I'll just expand here a little bit, which is the midfield. And it's partly obvious reasons because they lost like 3 players ahead of the tournament from there. But even beforehand, I don't think they'd quite found the right balance or the right way to have both really, really good protection of the defence, but also much, much better progression of the ball than they have shown so far. I kind of get it for Koeman, like he's got a few players left to pick from, and he's kind of got to find a decent formula between them. And it's not a lot of time pre-tournament and then in the tournament, but I think a little bit more... what's the word? It's not pragmatism really that I'm looking for. It's basically, I think at this point he needs to pick maybe just 1 or 2 players on consistency value rather than their absolute star quality or their very best level possible, that kind of thing. Like Tierney Reinders, I think is good. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great one. I think he's a good one. And I think he's a really good facilitator for this Netherlands side. I would have him in the team. Now, depending on who you're playing, if they're very, very good or strong centrally or whatever, you can then flip him between being a 10 or a part of a double pivot or a 3-man midfield or whatever you want. But I would have him in to start with. Now, Koeman has really struggled with finding the right sort of defensive midfield partner to go in there. Veerman, we know, has had an absolute mare at this tournament. I don't rate him hugely, but I think this has been a particularly not representative tournament of his overall ability, let's say. He's just had a shock, and that's just how it goes sometimes. But if you can find the balance there with Reinders, and whether it's Shooten or whether you bring Shooten and Wijnaldum in and just have a really reliable trio there, and then just have them as kind of facilitators and backup players for Gakpo, Simmons, and whether it's Memphis or whether you take him out and put Weghorst in because he just allows the other 2 to be better, or against a team like Romania, if you can go Gakpo, Simmons and Frimpong on the flanks, there's got to be something additional that he can find there, whether it's through the coaching, but primarily through picking those midfield players, which allows a much better balance because it's so disparate at the minute. It just looks like the defensive line is, fairly decent, obviously not absolutely elite, but you've got more than good enough players there who can hold their own, really, really experienced in front of the goalkeeper. But then it's like just 2 players, and then it's the forward line. And considering one of the biggest parts of Netherlands' forward line is Memphis, he's a goal scorer, but he's a creator for them as well. He's really good movement. He's got a good first touch. He's got vision in his game and all the rest of it. But at the minute, he's not really got any of that because he's hardly played for like 4 months. And it's very, very difficult for then, if you've got nobody behind the attacking midfield line and nobody in front of the midfield line who is linking well, who has got a good first touch, who's confident in the game and all the rest of it, it's really hard to get a cohesive performance in. So I do hope we see something a little bit different from them in midfield. Maybe it's just a case of going Rangers and shooting, because I think that's the pairing so far which has looked most close to where they can be as a decent pairing. But I think Romania is an opportunity for them, because like Romania are fun and quick to get forward and overcommit at times. There's a lot of space there. They're aggressive and they play fast. If Netherlands can just be on their game and their touch is assured and they get the balance right in that centre of the park, I think they can cut through them a lot. And even if Memphis is not at 100%, I think they'll get enough chances to win the game. And let's be honest, this side of the draw should be a massive opportunity for a nation like Netherlands. Like if they were even 80% of the way there, I just think that this is a really, really good chance for them to go like to a semi-finals at least. Even I think not a semi-final squad. Let's be honest.
This side of the draw is just so open. I mean, if they get through here, they'll take on one of the winner, or they take on the winner of the other game today. They should be able to beat both of those teams, Austria and Turkey. And then they take on either England or Switzerland. Now, England have a better 11 on paper, but England are playing dreadfully. I don't even know with confidence that they'll get past the Swiss. But they should be able to beat the Swiss, the Dutch should. But again, I don't know that they would, because I don't know that I back them to beat Austria. They lost to them already once. The defensive line is fairly solid. I'm not a big fan of Dumfries. I think De Vrij is well past his best. But Van Dijk is still the best in the world, and Aki's excellent. I like the goalkeeper. But the mid, and like you said, I mean, there's a lot of talent in attack. I like the Frimpong, Simmons, Gakpo line behind the striker. I don't necessarily like it behind this version of Memphis Depay, because as you said, he's barely played in lots. You've got Weghorst. I don't know why we haven't seen Xerxes for even a minute. Like, just give the lad an opportunity.
I think
the midfield is the issue.
They counted earlier that they've only used 17 players so far, which seems extraordinarily low.
It does. Like, it does seem really low. But the other side of it is, no matter how poorly players play, they're getting more opportunities. So Joey Veerman, he was awful in the opening game against Poland. Absolutely awful. So he gets dropped. But he comes off the bench against France. And then he's back in the team for the Austrian game. I think Gini Wijnaldum's played quite well off the bench, but he hasn't gotten an opportunity to start a game yet. I think Shooten and Reinders is probably the partnership that's worked the best. It's the one that played against France, and they look fairly solid in midfield on the day. But I'd like to have seen Gini and Reinders and see what that looks like, even for, an extended run. We've seen it at times, but I'd like to see it for a bit of an extended run in a game. Because all you really need that midfield to do is protect the defence and act as conduits to get the ball from the back four into that front four. And maybe have one of them, and this is where Reinders would come into his own, breaking forward and making that extra man in attack. And Ginny's more than capable of sitting in the midfield by himself and hoovering things up if they lose the ball, or being that recycler. That's what they've had Shooten doing. Shooten's okay, but he's not he's the guy that was called up because of injuries. He wasn't even in the squad to begin with, before Frankie and Hoopminers got hurt. And then he called up Shooten and Xerxes. So how do you go from a fella not being in the squad to, he's my first choice midfielder? I just don't get that. Very, very strange. Like you said, the Romanians do overcommit at times. They play a nice brand of football aesthetically, but it's not necessarily the most effective brand of football. Can leave themselves open. How do you expect this game to play out? Who's your winner?
I'll go with Netherlands to be my winner. I just think that they've probably got enough players who can have those moments, because like I don't think either of these teams are like well structured. Let's be honest. Like they've both got fun things to watch about them, but they're also both like a little bit crazy with the spaces that they leave or the just really weird things that they do. And they've both had matches already in the group stage where they just do nothing at all for quite long stretches, to be perfectly honest. But Netherlands create a little bit more, not oodles more. It's only 3 games, so it's a fairly small sample size anyway, but they do have better forward players. I think Cody Gakpo has been in good form for them. That's quite an important thing because he's one of their main outlets, obviously. And generally speaking, I think that there's a slightly superior supply line in terms of actual passes, in terms of running with the ball, in terms of ball carrying and movement. Romania are better than Netherlands have been so far by quite a distance. And defensively, although Netherlands definitely have the better individuals, as a team, Romania have actually conceded fewer chances and fewer goals and fewer expected goals, for whatever you want to take from either of those 3 things. Overall, they've been better. So you can say that Netherlands maybe had a tougher opponent or two, fine, but that's where we are. Romania are going to have the confidence in their game because of how they've performed and because they've got out of the group stage. I do still think Netherlands, I'll pick them to win 2-1, I think. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 4-0 to Netherlands or 2-0 Romania.
Yeah, it does feel like one of those games that really could go in a bunch of different directions. The first goal is going to be absolutely key. But I'm going to pick the Netherlands to win as well. I'll go 2-1. Final game of the round of 16 then, Austria versus Turkey. I think it's fair to say that of the teams in the bottom half of the draw, Austria have been the best thus far. Very unfortunate to lose to France in the opening game. An own goal by Max Weber. But they matched France in pretty much every aspect. Then they beat Poland 3-1 and were, I thought, very impressive on the day. And then a 3-2 win over the Dutch, where they showed a lot of character and a lot of fight. And I think you've got to give credit to Ralf Rangnick. He has the team very well organised. There's no real star name. There's just a lot of good players. I hypothesized the other day that they could be Greece 2004 all over again because of how the draw has broken out for them, because they won't fear any of the teams they're going to play. They won't fear the Turks. If it's the Netherlands in the next round, they're not going to worry about that. And I don't think they'd be overawed by playing England or Switzerland. And that could land them in a final. Where if it's Germany, could the home pressure, the overconfidence of, oh, well, it's only Austria, could that lead to Austria causing an enormous upset that brings back memories of 20 years ago? I think it's not outside the realms of possibility. But they've got to get through this first game. And Turkey have some match winners in their team. I think overall they lack a little bit of quality. I think they're a little bit shaky at the back. I think they're too heavily reliant on Çalhanoğlu for their build-up play. But they do have some very good players, including Çalhanoğlu. Arda Güler has been impressive. I think Yildiz has been impressive. They work hard. They're a good unit. But I do make Austria favourites going into this one.
Yeah, all very, very fair. And a big part of the reason for that is that Çalhanoğlu was suspended for this. And he is a crucial part of Turkey's build-up. That's like everything goes through him when it's on the ground and centrally. Obviously, he takes set pieces as well, and he has the experience and the name and the standing and the squad and all of that. But in a much more practical sense, their build-up play goes through him. He plays a lot deeper than years ago, let's say, when he was a name coming through. He's literally their controller. He directs the play for them. I've quite enjoyed watching Yildiz. You just mentioned him. I think he's been quite fun to watch. I think he's quite lively and makes really interesting runs, and maybe hasn't quite yet put it together in terms of the final the final pass and all the rest of it in the area, but I think he's very good outlet for them. Very, very good movement. Certainly gets shots away quite quickly. So between him and Gula, that's got to be Turkey's best avenue of attack. Thing is, I think Austria have been the best set up team at the tournament. Like off the ball, they are brilliant, and in possession, they are already set up to be off the ball as well. That's the best coaching that we've seen at this tournament. No question about that. Like by a long, long way, even better than Spain, because Spain are very, very open when they are in possession because they have such very deep reliance on really quick regains and really high up the pitch, and they crowd you out and all the rest of it. That's good, but it's not this level of coaching. Rangnick has done a very, very good job with everybody understanding the positional play, the different phases that they have to be involved in, where they can attack, because they're not really really structured in attack. There's a lot of movement there between, say, Siebold and Lima and Baumgartner and Sabitzer. So there's like very, very good interplay there. It's not spectacular play from Austria all the time, but it just works. They just have a really, really clear idea and they execute it very well. And the players are obviously going to be, again, confident, and they all look fit, and they've rotated a little bit as they've gone along. I don't think they have anybody suspended either. So, yeah, they should be at full strength and full confidence levels.
Yeah, they really should. And there's talent, a lot of talent in the squad, like in the likes of Baumgartner. If Wimmer plays, he's an interesting wide player. Like you said, Sabitzer, Lehmer, Sivo, these are Grilic. These are really disciplined players, really intelligent players. And as you said, like there's a lot of movement, but they don't move into unstructured shapes. When they move, the shape that they move into still makes sense from an off-ball point of view. They don't leave themselves in a position where there's a massive bit of space in front of the right back for a team to play into. There's just a great cohesion with them, and I think Rangnick's, I think he's done brilliantly, and it would be just hilarious if they could reach the final. It would be incredibly, incredibly good for Austrian football, and it would be hilarious if they won the tournament, because absolutely nobody picked them beforehand. And the way the draw has broken, this is the thing. For them to win it, okay, let's just say they go Turkey, Netherlands, and England, and let's say that's how they get through and they get to the final. Well, let's say they meet Germany. Germany would have gone Denmark, which was a tough game, Spain, which is far harder than any of the games Austria would have played, and then potentially France, which again is harder than any of the games the Austrians would have played. And they might just be worn down a bit by the time they get there. And it could just be that we get a situation like with Portugal in 2004, where they got to the final, they'd had the harder side of the draw, they got to that final, they were at home, there was enormous pressure on them, but there was also this feeling of, oh, well, they just need to turn up and they're going to win. Because I remember vividly, after the semi-finals in 2004, when Greece knocked out the Czech Republic, the immediate coverage of it was, well, Turkey are going to walk this final. I mean, they were going to beat the Czechs. Greece have no chance. And Portugal came into that game so overconfident and really couldn't understand why Greece were just rolling over for them. And I do wonder if similar things could happen this time around. I'm going to pick Austria to beat Turkey, Karl. I'm going to pick them to win 3-1.
Ooh, big. I will go... I was going to go for a 1-0, but you know what? After yesterday's not excitement fest, I'm going to hope to embrace some madness today. I'll go 3-2. Turkey's games so far, they've been either really, really on top or really unable to cope with any pressure at all. So I find it would be quite interesting if maybe Turkey took the lead and then Austria have to come up with something and then see how Turkey react to that. That would be quite an interesting part of overall approach and, Tente's mental side, which, as we saw against Georgia, for example, did not cope well initially. The only question marks I think over Austria is like, it could change as the tournament goes along, but we didn't necessarily see, although they played really well and probably deserved to win, they didn't score against France. They missed quite a few chances, quite a few big chances. I just wonder how that smaller, what we would call smaller club mentality is when they do come up against a bigger nation again. And maybe this side of the draw obviously helps them in that regard because there's not enormous ones, like Netherlands are not at the pinnacle anymore or anything like that. But it will be interesting if Austria go through to see how they play and how they perform in those extra games, in those extra big games, sorry, I should say. Just small wanderings over the final third, but they did hit 3 against Netherlands already. So, yeah, let's hope they continue to bring the goals because they've been fun.
They have been fun. And it's a nice story as well. Right, we will leave it there. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care of yourselves and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.